Hello and welcome back to today's stained glass tutorial. That's the topic of today's video. And today we've got this shell that we're making, and today is actually a part of our 4th week for the April stained glass kit. And for this shell, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be using the white glass for the bottom area and the blue glass for the top area. And we've got plenty of glass left over from our kit. So we are doing very well this 4th week. And if you haven't been with us for the others, this was the week 1, the week 2, the week 3, and now we're doing the week 4 here. And this is all a part of our kit that we sell of the vinyl templates. So these are adhesive back vinyl templates that we're going to use to stick to the glass and use as a cutting template. And the kit also comes with all the glass needed for the month. So it's one project per week, live streamed every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. So continuing on with today's stained glass tutorial, we are, like I mentioned, going to be using the white and the blue glass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel off each kit. Comes with 2 of each pattern. So I went ahead and traced this one in Sharpie so we could see it on camera. And I'm going to go ahead and start to place these that we're going to be using as our cutting template. So what you want to do is try to get the best yield possible whenever you are, going to be cutting into your glass. So what I mean by that is you don't want to take this piece and just put it right in the center. You want to put it somewhere where you're going to get a good yield, because you don't want to have a whole lot of wasted salvage glass. So what we're going to be doing is kind of working out of this corner that we've already started. In this particular glass, it does not have very many, it really doesn't have a direction. So that is an advantage here that we don't have to worry about in terms of the, getting the best yield. So that's about what I'm going to be using as the pieces. And what I'm going to be doing is just going ahead and cutting these out so we can get this big piece out of our way. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I like to use this pencil grip cutter, and I'm just going to score it, and you just want that light, consistent pressure here. And that is going to give you the best result. What I like to do is I just take my glass cutter and I tap it from the back side, and it kind of runs that scratch that we made all the way through. And then with a little bit of pressure, it just pops right off. Now, if you don't feel comfortable using your bare hands, get some gloves. There is no shame in that. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do here is cut all of these out, and this will give me the best chance of not having any problems with breaking into each other whenever we're going back to cut through these. And when they get kind of small like this, I like to use the Grosier's here. So I'll just put a little bit of pressure, just trying to work that scratch all the way through, and just breaks through just like that. So these are going to be the 4 pieces for the bottom part of this shell, and then this top part I'm going to go ahead and start putting onto the blue. Now the blue does have a little bit of a direction here. I can see I marked this on the glass from our previous kits or patterns that we made. What I'm going to want to do is to kind of try to keep these in this orientation. I think it's going to give me the best look overall. So, and this is pretty random, but we're going to want to try to do our best here to keep it, somewhat in the direction that we are seeing on this. Now, one thing to keep in mind, these glasses that we're using today, they are very smooth on both sides, so you don't need to be really overly cautious as far as which side you're cutting on. But if you do have a pretty textured glass, you are going to want to make sure to try to cut on the smoothest of the sides there. That'll give you kind of the best results, and you're going to find out pretty quickly that it's kind of difficult to cut on that textured side. So either way, it will kind of work out for you in the end. And we are going to go ahead and peel off this little sticker here because I think I actually want to use this spot. It has some nice lines right here. So I think I'm going to want to use this spot. Kind of cut off. Now, if you do end up peeling up the sticker, I would recommend writing the name of the glass somewhere else on your glass, just in case you want to purchase more in the future. And, you know, it'd be, depending on how much glass you purchase, it's a good chance you're not going to remember exactly which one, especially because they have kind of weird names. Normally they're like numbers and letters and stuff like that. So you're going to be sort of in your best interest to go ahead and mark them. And you can see I'm being pretty, conscious of, I've got these lines that are sort of going like this, and I kind of want these shells to really follow those. So I'm really kind of being conscious of how I'm placing these little templates here. And this is the last piece that we are placing down. Kind of put this one, somewhere over here will work good. Still getting a pretty good yield and still getting the orientation of the glass that I want. So we are going to go ahead and cut this down. I'm going to separate the part that we are using from the rest of it. And go ahead and tap this through. Oh, and right here we actually broke right through our piece. I think we might still be able to use this spot. No, we're going to have to cut another little area off. Not the end of the world. We'll do it right there. That'll work. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this right along that pattern. It'll save me a cut here in a few moments. Now right here what I'm going to do is just gently work this score through by putting a little bit of gradual pressure all along the score. And it doesn't really seem like anything's happening, but it is just barely separating that glass. And if you kind of take your time here, it will just pop off like that. So we've got all of our glass that we need. I'm going to set that blue to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can try to just cut this little part off. Just like that. And now we can go ahead and continue cutting. And please, if you do have any questions, be sure to leave them in the chat. I'll be sure to answer them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and continue on with this blue glass. I am going to go ahead and separate them all so we don't have a little problem of cutting into our pieces that we want to keep. Just going to, again, just gradually work it, and it breaks off just like that. Now this particular glass we're using right now is an Oceanside glass, and this is a good one for water and other, sometimes if you've got, some skies that can be appropriate for. It's probably a little bit blue. It's, not necessarily what I would consider a sky blue, but it's got some, it's a nice blue to say the least. And it does kind of emulate clouds a little bit with all the little white, like if you look at this, it has a little bit of this cloudy little, white wispy color flowing through it. So that could emulate clouds to some degree. And what I like to do is, whenever I'm cutting out a piece, I like to score the entire piece and then go back and break it down. It's a little bit faster this way instead of picking up your cutter, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. Now this, I am going to make it a little bit easier on myself. Just take off a little bit of this meat, and then we can really get the leverage right up close to our score line. And if we do have these little kind of points on here, we're going to go back. Let me show you on the free camera. Oops, I'm sorry, on the close camera. You can see these little points. We're going to go back on the grinder and take care of all of those. So don't worry if you have a few of those. Now, a lot of people try to get by without the grinder. I personally think it's just such a useful tool that there's really no reason to do that. Just my personal opinion. might be a little bit controversial, but I personally just really prefer to use the grinder. It's a little bit, you know, maybe $100, $150 investment, but I think it is well worth it, especially in the long run, from all of the utility it brings you. If you want to really make this, you know, something that you're going to want to do in the long term. So we've got all of our blue pieces separate now. We're going to go ahead and score them down, and then we'll go back and break them all apart. And you can see the advantage of using these little patterns are just immense, especially if you have an opaque glass. And sometimes you can get by, if the glass is clear enough, you can kind of see the line you need to cut through it. But in this case, this glass is pretty dense. If you don't have a light table illuminating it from the bottom, then it's pretty much, you know, it's not going to work out the way you might want. But with these vinyl little patterns here, you essentially do not need to, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's got the opaque, if it's fully opaque or not. We can easily, very easily, just cut right on top of any of those opacities. There we go. Got another blue piece, and as I cut them, I'm going to try to put them onto my pattern here. I think it'll help me keep track of where I am at. And we've got a few pieces cut here. Still in the rough cut stage. Nothing too crazy. Make sure to keep a little trash can nearby for all of the glass scraps. And in case you don't know me, my name is Adrian. I'm a part of the Cavallini Stained Glass Studio. And we work on hundreds of stained glass panels every single year. So that's why I hope that I can share something with you that will be helpful for you. And of course, this is a part of our Stained Glass Mastery community, where we have tutorials, all the patterns you see here for free linked in there. We have a good community of other artists to ask questions, share projects, and we do have monthly giveaways, 3 monthly giveaways in the gift cards. And so if you are interested in that, make sure to check the description and sign up for the free Stained Glass Mastery community. Be happy to have you, and looking forward to seeing you there. And we're making pretty good progress here. Got a few of these blue pieces left to score. Now this one's got a really thin leg here. You got to be kind of careful with those. These have a really big tendency to break just like that. So I'm going to kind of take my time here. Again, applying gradual pressure, and eventually they kind of just snap just like that. There we go. So that's a pretty good piece. Got a little bit we need to clean up on the grinder, but nothing too severe. This one I think goes about right there. And the seashell is getting us ready for the summertime to go to the beach and enjoy the water, the salt water. So I am looking forward to that this summer. I hope you are too. And we are going to just take this down. There we go. Little by little. And sometimes it just pings off just like that. Now you're going to want to be careful. Sometimes you may need to be wearing a safety glasses. I'm wearing my normal glasses, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's exactly the most safety glasses compliant, but it is better than nothing. So if you don't have something, at least I might consider getting a pair. Because you really only get one pair of eyes. And the safety squints aren't always the most useful. There we go. Perfect. And this is another piece where you just have almost no meat to hold on to. So what I'm probably going to do, I'm going to probably try to take this down a little bit less, and then this will give me a little bit more leverage because I can get closer to that original score line that's right there on the border of our vinyl template. So see that? It's a little bit easier for me to break now. There we go. And we can just clean that little bit up on the grinder. So we are starting the bottom part of our little shell here. Looking very sea lifey. And next week we are starting the first week of the next pattern for the May pattern. And I don't actually remember what we have planned in there. I think one of them might be an animal. So looking forward to that for the May stained glass kit. There we go, and those are available in our store. I'll leave a linked product here in the description of the video here. There we go. Okay, there we go. We got it. Sometimes you got to be really careful with these. You can see we've got a really sharp little piece, right? Oops. Really sharp little shard there. I'm going to probably, if you have something like that, you can just take your grinders and just knock it down, because that is going to poke you, and you are not going to be happy about that. I would assume, anyway. I'm going to go ahead and get that. I keep my table brush handy, and I just sweep off all these little debris. And we are going to continue on, just little by little. Just removing all these little pieces and getting our seashell shape. There we have it. Got that. Go ahead and put this right back. Perfect. And we've got one more piece to go ahead and cut down here. And then we are going to be moving on to the grinder for this stained glass tutorial. There we go. Just using that as a nice template. A little guide even for your glass cutter. Works really nicely. And I also really like these templates for the grinding because they show very clearly what still needs to be adjusted. And that helps you to get a really nice overall finished product at the very end. Okay. So now we are ready to move on to our grinder. There we go. And what I like to do is to keep my water in this little water bottle. It's got a little hole poked in the top there. I can just, use it to shoot the little sponge here. Turn that on. And it saturates everything, keeping all that glass dust down as much as we can. Okay. It's looking good. So now, what we're going to do, let's go ahead and take our glass here, and we are going to start knocking all this glass that is around the vinyl pattern. Actually, you can't really see it very well because it's white. We're going to not see all that blue that we see. We need all that to be gone. So we're going to go ahead and take this, and we are going to slowly but surely remove all that material. And these vinyl patterns, they stay on the glass perfectly. No problems at all, even if they get a little bit wet. So these have been a really nice game changer, especially for beginners trying to, make some projects. And so now we can go ahead and check out on the close camera. See that? All the blue is gone. Now that's going to fit perfectly. Perfectly. That is exactly what we want to see. And we're going to go ahead and put our pieces right back on our pattern. And you can see it is very quick. What I used to do when we didn't use these vinyl patterns is I would take the marker and I would just mark a little bit and then grind a little bit and go and go and go until I finally got it. But now, you can pretty much just get it done in the first try every single time. So this really takes a lot of that guesswork out of it and kind of makes this finishing of the cutting process a whole lot less painful. And it gives you a really nice finished product. That glass is just the exact correct size. And we're going to see how well everything just fits together so nicely as we finish up with the grinding, towards the end of the grinding part. And so now you're kind of seeing why I really like the grinder. Another really nice part about it is it sets up the edges of the glass to receive the copper foil. And this way you're not going to have any weird variations. Now, if you're using a textured glass, you're still going to have these variations in thickness, you know, due to the texture, of course. But at least on the smooth side, you'll have that nice, even reveal of that foil. And you're not going to have any weird texture where the foil is going to sort of fall into and kind of take shape to that irregular, you know, face shape, if you will. This way, it grinds it down to a nice 90-degree angle, and you pretty much have no issues. It just works out really, really well. Makes it look almost like a machine did it. We are making good progress here. Now, another important thing to consider is if you're not used to handling glass, this stage can be very tough on your fingers, and you may need to wear some gloves. And again, don't feel like, you know, you can't. You want to protect yourself as much as you need to. Oops. And we had a little bit of a weird chip out right here. It's not the end of the world. It still has a good shape, so we're going to go ahead and keep that piece. There we go. And we've got one more blue piece to grind down here. And what I like to do is just keep adding a little bit of water to the sponge, and that'll just keep that grinding wheel nice and saturated. And it'll keep that glass dust from going into the air. And it also extends the life of that grinder head. So this is all worthwhile and important things to go ahead and do. And little by little, just shaving down that shape, exactly what we want. Just like that. Okay, so this is the last blue piece. And now we are ready to continue on to the little white pieces. And of course, if you have some scrap glass, you can use any colors glass that you really have. And if you want to, you can purchase the kit and get all the glass that we used in the videos for the last 4 weeks. So if you want those exact step-by-step instructions, that's That would be the way to go. And these white pieces, they still show up even though it's a little bit, obviously the vinyl template is white. But the white glass, it's a little bit of a different color. On camera, you can barely see the difference. But with your eyes, it's much easier to tell. And we're just taking this glass down. And this particular bit is a 1-inch diameter. And they do have others that are a little bit smaller, I believe a 1/4 inch. So if you have a really tight little area you need to get into, that would be the way to go. In this case, we do not need that. We are just using the, we're just using the grinder to knock down these edges, and everything is pretty much a smooth radius. It's not a really tight radius where you need something really small like that. And with that, we are done with the grinding. And now we are ready to begin cleaning off our glass in preparation for the copper foil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sweep this off one more time, just in case. And we are going to, what I like to do, make sure we have no grinder water on this pattern. And I'm going to go ahead and take off part of this vinyl from this wax paper. And where are my scissors? Let me grab that. And we are going to remove some of this. You can reuse this if you want. I'm going to throw mine away. I've got tons of this stuff. And we can take this vinyl off and stick it down, and you might be able to reuse it. So you're going to want to kind of look to the other side and try to sort of stick it in the same orientation. And see, it still sticks. So you might be able to use this even another time. And, maybe it won't be perfect, but, it's good to save it just in case. Maybe you want to include your spouse or a friend. And this could be a really, good way to reuse this and get a little more value from the kit. Now, it of course does come with 2 already, but, maybe you wanted to do it more than twice. So I'm going to continue to remove all of these, and then we're going to get to cleaning all of the glass. And we're going to remove all this glass dust. See all that glass dust? So that is not going to stick to the copper foil. And it will be a bit of a problem. And if you're going to do all this work, you want it to last, You don't want it to be damaged or failing at some, very early in its life. We want it to outlive ourselves if possible. So, what I like to do, just take a rag, try to find a clean spot. This is some patina that I did in the past, so try to avoid that area. Just find a clean spot. This is just an old t-shirt. Just some blue glass cleaner, nothing too special. And we are removing all that glass dust. See all that? Especially on these edges. What I like to do, move everything off to the side, and as we finish them, put them right back on the pattern. And I'm going to go ahead and try to remove any of this junk off there. So again, taking these edges, and the cleaner they are, the better. Don't try to rush this step, because this is going to be foundational for the adhesion of the foil and ultimately the longevity of your little panel. And if you're doing a panel that's much bigger, it's even more important. So there we go, nice and clean. It'll have this little bit of a dull look where the grinder sort of scratched the surface, but it is clean. Now, how does this thing go on there? I had it upside down. There we go. Okay. And fortunately, these pieces, you know, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky with these pieces because they can be not fully symmetrical, or they can look almost symmetrical, but they're off enough to where it can be a problem. You know, you can barely see it, but when you start to fit all the pieces together, it just does a little bit different, and it can cause a bit of an annoying problem. So really try to pay attention to the orientation of your pieces. And it's not really going to be too critical until we actually start to solder, because that's when everything starts to really get locked in. Right now we're kind of just working on every single piece individually. But the time is nearly upon us, and we are going to want to kind of keep that in mind as we progress here. And this blue is a really nice blue. I think it's going to look really good when we get the light on it. And we've got a few more pieces here to clean up. Go ahead and resaturate my rag here a little bit further. And just look at all that stuff we got to take off. Yep, get all that stuff off. And this little glass cleaner, you can use an alcohol that kind of evaporates quicker. And that way, you know, you don't have any problems with the foil not adhering due to it being a little bit not dry. But either way, even this glass cleaner dries pretty quickly. You know, it's not like we're dipping this thing into a pool of glass cleaner. We're just kind of wiping the surface with a mildly damp rag. And so that works pretty good. And it doesn't take too long, despite it, you know, not being just basically a bone dry, you know, rag here. Probably the pieces that I did at the beginning are already dry by now. Okay, so you can see, let's just look really quickly here on the free camera. Oops, wrong way. You can see how these are fitting together really well. Really well. Definitely a passing grade here. So that is pretty much what you want. And these vinyl templates just really help in that process. I've seen many people using a Cricut machine, some sort of machine. I've seen them. Don't know how to use them. We use a vinyl plotter. And we just purchased this big roll of vinyl, and it just cuts them all out. You know, we've got a few different sizes: 6-inch, 18-inch, 12-inch, and 24-inch rolls, and I think they're like 100 feet long each. So we can just cut all these patterns out. There we go. And this white glass, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's a little bit of iridescent to it. It's a pretty nice little touch for the ocean. And we've got one more little piece after this one. And we are ready to begin foiling. All right. Oops, now how do you go? There we go, just like that. Got our little pieces all cleaned up. And what I am going to do now is bring out the foiler. And we are going to be using the black back foil today. And in case you're not familiar, let me show you this foiling thing. So I just like to use the blue caddy. I've got it screwed down onto a 2x4. And I've got the 3 different finishes I like: the silver, the bare copper, and this is the black backing. And I just used the Creator's foiler here, and these are all 7/32, so they all fit. And I just kind of mount that down to the 2x4. And this is my favorite way to go ahead and do the foiling. It is very fast compared to hand foiling. You'll pretty much never see me on this channel hand foiling unless I'm doing a really quick and minor repair somewhere. I just really like to do it this way. It's just far superior, my opinion. And my little tool here is getting a little bit sticky. And so we're going to go ahead and get started here. I am going to place my pattern over here on the other side. And again, as we foil, we will put them down into the correct spot. So we're going to get started with this tiny little piece. And this foiler, it works for all shapes, even something this small and something much bigger, not square, you know, any irregular shape. It just works extremely well. And with a little bit of practice, you can get very quick at it. See that? So now, once I've got the foil applied, I just fold it over and kind of zip up to the next corner, fold over, and then do a little zipper motion up to the next corner, and just really try to fold it over. And we're going to go back and burnish these once these are all done. So you've got that nice even reveal of foil on both sides. And we'll go over here and put it down onto our little pattern. Continue on to the next. And as you use the material, it separates the backing. So it's just a really nice, quick way to foil up all your pieces. And I like to just use these little these are lead dikes meant to cut lead, and they work really well to cut the foil. I like them a little more than scissors. Mine are getting a little bit sticky. I guess they're kind of rusting up a little bit. You need to kind of go through and work them a little bit. And the way that this foil works is, or the foiler I should say, is it has a little groove that when you insert the glass through, it centers it on the foil, and it's got a little bearing that as you kind of spin it through, it spins on that bearing, and that's what applies the pressure to adhere that glass to the foil. And it's just a really nice little system. And since it centers it, it does a really good job. Let me see if I can give you another view here. It does a really good job of having a nice even reveal on both sides. And you can see the glass just fits right in there. You just spin it through. It works on concave shapes, convex shapes. Now, one thing you have to do is when you get towards the beginning, you have to make sure to fold that foil over so that it doesn't get knocked off when it goes to recenter it inside that groove. And then you just fold it over and fold it over and zip it up just like that. Before you know it, your piece is very nicely foiled, evenly, well adhered, and ready to be burnished. And I just set it off to the side, and we continue on here. And in almost no time, you have got a very well foiled panel. So we've already got all of the white glass done, and we are moving on to the blue glass. And this foil, it's very shiny, looks really good. Even before it gets soldered, it's almost a shame you got to cover it all up with the solder, but such is life. and it will still look really good. In this case, we are using the black backed patina. I'm sorry, black backed foil, and we will be using a patina to darken all of the solder, and a black patina, and then we will have a nicely finished little panel. Just gonna make sure that foil folds over right on that glass face. And we're just doing hand pressure for now. That foil, see, it sticks to all those nice little curves. And as far as materials, I like to use the Edco foil. It is kind of hard to get your hands on occasionally. We sometimes have orders in for months and are just waiting. So we do occasionally use Benari. I believe they're a Korean brand, if I'm not mistaken. And it's all right. It's all right. I think I prefer the Edco, but the Benari is not too bad. And there we have it. Got our next piece done. We've got 3 more here to foil, then we will move on to burnishing. And smooth glosses like this are very easy to burnish compared to highly textured glosses. Whenever you've got a highly textured gloss, the foil tends to rip and tear. And in this kit, we've only got one of those really highly textured glosses. It was the red gloss, and I chose that one because it fit really well with, you know, the texture of a strawberry. So I really wanted to include that red gloss. And it came out really good. I was really happy with the way it looked. And there we have it. Nicely foiled piece. Has a really good reveal on both sides. Nice and even and quick. And I have actually timed myself in the past doing the exact same piece foiling, and I think it was like less than half the time, for me anyway. I'm probably not the best hand foiler in the world, but it was way faster. And I mean, I was making sure when I was hand foiling to really get it right dead center, so that way it would be comparable in terms of quality. But it was just really tough to beat for me. Now, someone that's been doing only hand foiling for a very long time, I bet it would be a different story. But I would be curious to know how far off it would be. I'd be very curious to know. And it's good to check your piece over. See, I have a little bit more dust right there. I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off. There we go. This is the last piece that we are foiling. Just stick it in that groove. Just rolling that foil through and adhering very nicely. I'll pull a little bit out at the end, and this is what I will stick down. Overlap, when I overlap it. Then we'll just run that back and forth. And this came out really nicely. We're just folding that over, zipping it right along. Getting back to that starting point and just folding it over. Okay, we do have a little bit of something we're going to want to touch up here. I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to the close camera. And what we need to do, you can see here, this foil, it wasn't perfectly overlapped, so I just like to take the X-Acto blade, I just trim that down. And that comes out really nicely just like that. And now we are ready to go ahead and move on to the burnishing. I am going to go ahead and keep the foiler out because we need to, in case we might need to do any sort of repairs. And hey there, Cindy asked, will I be doing any beauty soldering on the shell? You know, that would have been a good idea. Unfortunately, I didn't do any sort of little cutouts here. Yeah, I encourage you to give that a shot and then posting that in the community. I'd like to see what you were thinking of for something like that. I didn't have anything planned, and to try to wing something I think might be a little bit tricky for me. So I don't think I'm going to try to wing it, but by all means, I would be very interested to see what you had in mind over in the community. And so we've got all of our pieces here. What we're going to go ahead and do now is burnish them. And what you want to do is push down on the edge first. Make sure there's no air bubbles going to get locked in. And then on the face. So I'm going to take it through. And let's see if I can get you a little bit of a different view here. There we go. So I'm just pushing down on the edge. This is the tiniest piece. Probably going to be the hardest one to do. So we'll do it first. And that might sound a little bit misleading, but definitely the small, tedious pieces are harder than the larger pieces, without a doubt. And as you kind of burnish it, you want to be, kind of strong with it, but not so hard that you're going to end up breaking it. That is something you want to avoid, breaking that solder, breaking that foil, I mean. And as you burnish it, it really smooths it all out up against that texture. And then we can go ahead over here and place it onto our pattern. And these are now, as we place them, are ready to solder. So we are going to really get everything nicely burnished, get into all those textures of the edge of the glass. And as we burnish it on the faces, you want to make sure to burnish in towards the center, not center out. And that will keep it right on the edge instead of getting knocked off if you go center out. And there we go. And this particular FID that I like to use is ideal for, if you have texture, it's got this nice thin end, and it's just ideal for textured surfaces. Really works out very well. And we are almost at our last white piece here. Another thing, if you see where you started, it's hard to tell on that camera. You see right here where we started, where it overlapped, or actually where we ended, you want to make sure not to knock that off. You want to burnish in the direction it was placed, or else you could knock that off. And if you do knock it off, you can just overlap a little bit more foil as a repair, and that will, that will be all right. Just make sure to burnish it down before you do the repair and after. And Homemade, thank you. Homemade mentioned it's looking good so far. I think it is too. We are moving right along here onto our last white piece. We're just going to do a bit of a pressure here for the burnishing. Making sure to get all those edges. Don't want to skimp out here. If you do, you could risk getting a lot of flux up underneath the foil, and that will cause you some major problems also. Almost like not having cleaned them well enough, cleaned the glass well enough, and the foil not adhering for that reason. So we want to avoid any sort of ill adherence of the foil. And once it gets soldered, it will pretty much lock everything in. Oops, I was a little bit too rough here. I did a little injury. So what I'm going to do is I am going to try to cut this out, and then we're going to do a little repair. So if you look over here on the close camera, you see I pushed a little bit too hard on the when I was burnishing. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of foil, and I'm going to show you how I like to do the repairs. So something like this, before we do the repair, I'm going to burnish everything around. I'm actually going to go ahead and burnish the entire thing. And then with a fully burnished surface, we can go ahead and do that repair. So there we go. Now we've got to do this side. Same thing. Get it all nice and smooth out much as we can. And make sure all that foil is pushed right down. Just like that. And now we can go through and we will just cut this down a little bit. Go ahead and cut this off, and then cut this off, and then we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more touching up with the X-Acto blade, but I like to just push it all down, go back with our FID, burnish it further, and then using that other foil around it kind of as a guide, I like to just like that. Just run that blade. It looks like nothing ever even happened. Just run that blade, make a nice smooth transition. There we go. Just like that. So we've got this piece done. Put that on our pattern. You can see it's starting to get pretty populated over there. Let's see here. There we go. So we've got a few more blue pieces here to do. Starting with the edge. Get it all nicely adhered. And then down onto the face. And the corners you kind of have to be careful at, because you want to make sure to push it down to where the foil edge is exposed, not the backing edge. So you've got to kind of make sure, if you do it wrong one way, kind of push it down from the other direction, and then you'll know that you have that. Because the backing, the solder will not stick to. And you can try to kind of connect the solder line across, you know, the bead of solder from the foil's edge to foil edge that is exposed. Sometimes you can do that, but it's really just better to really try to make sure that that foil edge is exposed. That'll give you the best result. Alrighty. There we go. Second blue piece. Okay. Hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. It is coming to an end, unfortunately, but that is all right. There's always next weekend. All right. So really nice glass here. There we go. And after we get all of these pieces foiled, we'll do a close-up on to see how well did everything really fit in there. And do a close-up, you know, really take a really close look at your project too, and see how well everything's fitting. And you know, it is do a little comparison and just see, hey, would my project be enhanced or made better if I was to use these patterns? That'd be something to consider. There we go. All right. A few more pieces here. And surprise, we only had one little injury so far, but we are not quite done yet. We still have quite a ways to go. We've got these last two pieces here. There we go. Okay. All right. Now we've got one more piece here. See if we can get through injury-free here. I don't know. This one does have a little bit of an awkward shape in terms of the way that it was broken, but I think it will be all right. That foil is very well adhered. And right here we've got a nice overlap. And this foil is smoothing out very nicely. Make sure to really push this foil into all those weird little textures and chips. Sometimes when you do grind the glass, you can get some tiny little chips, or when the glass was broken when you're separating it along the score line, it can get those little chips too. So we've got this pretty much all done here. Going to, let's see, I will have a little bit of a spot here. We can switch to the close camera. We can see that we've got a little bit of a non-smooth transition here. So we're going to go ahead and cut that down. It was just right where it overlapped. Looks like I might need to burnish this down a little bit more. And I can do a little cut right there. There we go. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces here, and we can check to see how well is everything fitting together. Let's see here. We get it all, and then we're going to go ahead and check it all out. And you can, you know, decide what you think, if it's worth it or not. And I am going to go ahead and get my iron heated up. I'll switch over to the free camera. And so you can see everything is pretty much right next to each other. Very few voids. We've got a little bit of a void here where the glass looks like this piece right here chipped out a little bit. Kind of hard to tell in the camera. It's a little bit blurry. But other than that, everything is very tightly secure. and we are ready to move on to the soldering. So what I like to do is I like to tack everything in place at the joints, and I'm going to go ahead and get on my gloves here because there are many chemicals involved with soldering, and you want to try to reduce your exposure to them as much as possible. So now we will get our gloves on, and actually we could use a little bit extra flux in here. Looks like we're kind of running low, so I'm going to go ahead and squeeze a little bit more into here, and that will be plenty for a very long time. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is clear a little bit of space here. We no longer need the foiler. We are done foiling officially. We don't need any of the glass cutting materials. So I'll put the grosures, the scoring tool, the oil away. We don't need the lead dikes. We're done cutting the foils. X-Acto blade back into the foiler, and the scissors back into its place. And so now we are ready to bring our fume extractor around. And Stacy's mentioning can barely hear me. I can see if I can try to, I don't know if this has an up on the volume here. Looks like on my end it's all the way up. Let me know if anyone else is having a similar issue. And I'm going to bring the, in fact, I should be able to start up my video here. Switch to the close camera. Yeah, and my other video I can see on my phone here, so I think it might be on your end, Stacy. But let me know if anyone else is having that problem. And so now, go ahead and turn on the fume extractor. And we are going to dip a little bit of flux here. And we're just going to put it onto the joints. Just a few fluxes onto these joints, because we just want for this thing to stay together, and we can move our little vinyl template pattern out of the way. But I like to use the vinyl template to kind of keep everything sort of in the right spot. And looks like Connie mentioned that she can hear me all right, so I think it might be on your end, Stacy. And I'm going to, now what I like to do if my iron has a little bit of these little black impurities, normally it could be from a lot of different things, but what I like to do is take the wire brush and I like to just knock all that stuff off. And before you know it, we are back to a nice clean slate here. And let's see if this is hot enough for the, it is hot enough. So we're going to be using the lead-free solder. There you have it. So I just like to take a little bit of solder, and we are just tacking this together. And it doesn't take much for it to really be strong enough to where we don't need to worry about it any longer. So now, with just these little bits, see how it's holding on? So we can move this out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this down in case we want to use it in the future. And we are now done with the pattern officially. I did actually forget, we are going to be needing the wire and the lead dikes for one more part here. And we're going to go ahead and flux all of the foil now. And we're not going to be doing the nicest bead on the first try. We are going to first be just getting everything soldered so that we can flip it onto the other side. And then once we've got that, we will come back to this side and finish it off. So we're just kind of taking our solder onto here, just making sure everything is looking good. We're going to go ahead and tin all of the perimeters, and that way we will be nicely set up for our edge beading, which probably will do some edge beading after we finish the back side. And before too long, I am going to be switching onto my heat resistant gloves, because it's already starting to become questionable if I should still be working without them. Get that out of the way. So we've got this side pretty much fully, decently soldered, and we're gonna go ahead and flip it, and we got that nice shiny foil, and it's a little bit of a shame, but we're gonna be covering it all up. So we'll go ahead and flux everything, the whole thing, the perimeters, everything, and then we are going to go ahead and try to do a little bit of a nicer bead on this side. I'm going to go ahead and tin everything first, really nicely around the perimeter, and then I'm going to go back and kind of work my way outside in. And it can be a little bit, you can kind of mess up your work that you just finished on the inside if you go back to tin the perimeter. So I like to go ahead and do the tinning the outside first, and then we'll go back and do the interior area. Okay, so I'm actually going to go ahead and get my heat resistant gloves on so that I can kind of grab it and all that stuff. There we go. Okay. So now I've got the heat resistant gloves, and I can handle this very easily and painlessly. And now I'm gonna get a nice bead on here, and we're gonna really feed in quite a bit of solder here so that we get that nice rounded bead that we want. We don't want it to look flat and sunken in. We want it to look nice and rounded. So this is the back side we're doing right now. We're going to go ahead and do that, edge bead it, and then take care of all of the finishing touches on the front and on the back, in case there are any little finishing touches that might have gotten messed up from the edge beading, which does happen especially on the edges a little bit. And we'll go ahead and do this spot. Nice and rounded over, looking good. And it can be kind of tricky to go across several other joints, especially like this. You got a bunch of little connecting joints here whenever they're cooled down, and you just have to kind of be smooth with it. Just take your time and it will work out. Okay, so this side is looking good. I am going to go ahead and edge bead it now. So this is really where these gloves come in. And what I like to do is, this has actually got quite a bit of solder all over it. I am going to go ahead and, you got a little bit of exposed copper there. I'm going to go ahead and flux the perimeter, and that way as we move on from area to area, we know it's already pre-fluxed. So what I like to do, unroll your roll of solder, get it to where you can grab a little pinch of it from the iron tip, And I've got a little bit of debris on here. I'm going to go ahead and wire brush all that off. I don't really know where all that stuff comes from. Could be from the little brush, you know, the flex brush. This thing looks to be kind of deteriorating. Doesn't look all nice and clean. Too much, but so that's probably what I'm guessing. And we will just slowly but surely just grab a little pinch of it and just tap it down, just rounding over that edge as much as you can. And if it gets too hot, kind of have to either you can unplug your iron because your tip is just too hot and it's too runny, or you can kind of tap it a little bit faster. And this is given that you do not have one of the irons that have the temperature controller on the handle. I know Hakko has that. It's one of our best-selling irons. But if you don't have that, you can get a rheostat for your iron, which will limit the voltage, I believe, and it'll keep it from getting as hot. Or you can unplug it when it gets to that point. Or you can just pick it up a little bit faster. It's normally what I do. Just try to pick it up a little bit faster instead of leaving on for such a, you know, longer duration. And by longer duration, I mean 1 second versus like a quarter of a second. Not like you're leaving it on there for a minute or anything. And Lily Brooks, thank you for the compliment. And it is, stained glass is the most wonderful thing. I do enjoy it. I hope everyone here has been enjoying today's stained glass tutorial. And again, please join the Stained Glass Mastery community. You can get all the free patterns and a whole lot more. There we are. Just keep taking this all the way around. Little by little. And good afternoon, Cynthia. Thank you for joining us. All right, and I'm just going to knock that down, and that is fully edge bead all the way around. Now this is the first side, the initial side. And we do want to go ahead and neaten this up. And we're probably going to want to do a little bit of work over here on this side too. On the back side. Might try to smooth these out a little bit. There we go. Okay. So this is the front side. We actually I forgot to put on the little wire. So I have to decide that still. And I think that, let's see what we got here. I think that I'm going to put that wire probably right here along this solder line. So what I'm going to do here is create a little jump ring with the wire, and then we are going to spin it to make a little bit of a reinforced braided wire here. And we don't need it to be too crazy. Something like this will work. We're going to go ahead and cut that with our little lead dikes. And then we can solder that right in place and have a nice spot to hang our piece from. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is grab my lead dikes here. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of saturate this thing in some flux. That'll just make it a little bit easier. These are actually the Grosers, not the lead dikes, the Grosers. And I'm going to hold it right where I want it. And I'm going to go ahead and submerge this thing into the solder. So I'm going to be heating up the solder that is already there and adding just a little bit more to really cover it once and for all. And we're just really heating this up just like that. So that is pretty much fully submerged there. I am going to go ahead and add a little bit more on top, and that will just smooth it out from the back side just a little bit. And before you know it, you can barely even tell it is there. Just try to really gradually die down that big blob, and there you have it. So we're going to let that kind of cool for just a moment here. And this is it from the front side. So it's just a little jump ring that we can use to hang. And we're going to go ahead and apply everything. There we have it. So we're just really applying the solder, trying to get this nice rounded edge. And if it's a little bit flat, you can kind of go back over it, add a little bit more solder. And if it keeps flattening out, that means it's too hot and it's dripping to the backside. So if I look back here, it actually hasn't dripped here yet. Maybe we can add a little bit more solder. There we go. Okay, there we go. That looks good. And right here, we're just gradually, you can sometimes tap it through. It kind of depends how hot it is. This panel I've been working on for a little bit, so it's holding a lot of the heat, and so I'm just tapping it through instead of running it like I did on the back side, because it still didn't have a lot of heat on the back side. And you can rewind that video, you can see how it was the difference between what I was doing then compared to what I'm doing now. And at the end of the day, we want it to be a nice rounded edge. So as long as you're kind of soldering a wet area into wet area, you know, a molten area I should say, then you're going to keep that nice smooth run. And as long as you can get that nice rounded finish, it will work out very well. And I hope you all are enjoying this. Let me know what you think about it. Just in time for summer, our seashell for the ocean, for some summer decor. There we go. And we've got a few areas we want to touch up here just to make them smoothed out a little bit better. Got some buildup on the edges. Want to knock that down just a little bit. And now we do need to clean this. Before I continue, I just want to check the back. Okay, the back looks good. I want to go ahead and clean this up, and we're going to apply patina. So again, with our glass cleaner, we are just cleaning everything up. And we're actually showing a little bit of a rough solder mark here. I'm going to go ahead and knock that down. Smooth it out. There we go. And we'll go ahead and click off the iron. So we are done with that. And we are going to clean everything up very nicely so that it accepts our patina very well. That is what we want here. So this is the back side. Going to clean the front, the edges, and the back. And this is really more of a finishing stage here. So all of the structural and all the really, to me, the most important, the hardest parts are behind us. And we are just trying to get the nice finished look that we want here. So that is what we are going for. This is probably my favorite part of the project. Either this or starting, when you're sort of first getting that glass out and getting the vinyl onto the glass, kind of starting to see it take shape a little bit. That is also a good time for me. Okay. There we go. Got this all cleaned up. And it is time for us to apply the patina. Again, black backing, so we are using the black patina here. And we're just going to use our rag. Really saturate it with a lot of, oops, I actually dropped a lot onto the panel. And you can see that it is darkening up very quickly because of that. So this is normally how I apply it. I am wondering how maybe other people applied the patina. I'd be really interested in, you know, I've seen some people use a little brush, kind of like this little flux brush. I've seen some people spraying it with a spray bottle. Wondering how most other people do it. I've always done it like this, really out of kind of just convenience, I guess. I'm not really sure why, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I kind of feel like there's probably a better way. So let me know the way that y'all like to do it. And Stacy, no problem for the for making the video. And be sure to check out the Stained Glass Mastery community. It's free, and you can get free patterns, tool lists with links, and a whole lot else that might be helpful for you on your stained glass journey. And there we go, making this. When you sort of scrub it with the rag, it has a tiny bit of abrasion. It's not like you're scrubbing it with sandpaper or anything, but it's just enough abrasion to just reveal a little bit of a subsurface that will take the patina just a little bit better. So I have noticed that with the rag. It just does a little bit of that abrasive effect. And right here is pretty much our panel. Got it all nicely patinaed all the way around. And I am going to go ahead and just clean it one last time with the rag here. And we're going to get all this stuff off of here. And then we're going to go ahead and check out the final finished product. I do hope that everyone here enjoyed the final week of April, the final week of the first stained glass kit, and looking forward to next week starting the new stained glass kit with the 4 new colors, the 4 new glasses. And we've got 12 months of all different glasses, 48 different glasses, different for each month. So if you purchase the kit, you will not be purchasing the same glass over and over. So it'll help you to build your repertoire of different colors of glasses over time. And with that, we pretty much are all finished up with this week's project. Let me go ahead and switch over here. So thank you so much for watching. I've got the Summer Seashell, the last project for the April kit. And I'm going to be hanging mine right here. So we've got the week 4, the Star week 3, the Strawberry week 2, and the Landscape for week 1. And of course, next week we will be starting the week 1 of the May kit. So again, thank you everyone so much for watching. Hope to see you in the Stained Glass Mastery community. Have a great day.